Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Klein. I'm the director of P20 initiatives at Northern Illinois University, and part of my job is to work with school districts and community colleges around the state of Illinois on a variety of things. But among them, one of the things we're trying to do is support the work of school districts and community colleges with giving students opportunities to explore the career pathways and work-based learning. So today, we're excited to bring you another episode of our Career Pathways Virtual Trailheads series, so that you can have some opportunities to meet professionals in all kinds of different occupations, learn about their jobs without being out in the workplace with them. Of course, right now during the coronavirus shutdown, we can't be out in those workplaces, so this gives you the opportunity to do that. So today, we've got a really exciting guest, chemist by trade, but also an executive by work function. Jim, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jim Daly. I'm vice president of FloraLife, the company, the grower division of Smithers-Oasis, and research. So I run basically three divisions for a company called Smithers-Oasis.
So FloraLife is a company that a lot of people are familiar with and don't realize they're familiar with. Can you tell us how people might know what FloraLife is and then what you do for them?
Sure. So FloraLife is what everybody knows is the little packets, 5 grams or 10 grams, that comes with every bouquet of flowers. And we make 900 million of those every year. And they go into all the bouquets that are made in Colombia and Africa and shipped up to the United States and Europe. And you take that little packet and put it in the vase. And actually what that packet is doing is replicating photosynthesis in the flowers. The flowers can't make their own food anymore. So that's food for the flowers. And it makes the flowers live longer in the vase. And we do a lot of other chemicals for retail florists and growers and anything to do with cut flowers. We get into chemistry for that.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about your background, not only in school, but what you studied and why you were interested in it.
Sure. My bachelor's degree is in chemistry and mathematics. And then after that, got a master's in biochemistry and then an MBA. Why I went into it, it was interesting. When I went into college, I had two choices, chemistry or economics. I was interested in either. And I just took the book and went like that, and it went to one of them or the other, and it went to chemistry. So I went that way, believe it or not, that's how I chose it. But I always kind of liked science, and it was very interesting to me. And I liked math too, so I also went and got a degree in that. But that's kind of how I got there.
So when you think about your work today, as well as the work of people that you work with every day at Smithers-Oasis, what are some of the skills that you would say are most important for people to have?
I think it's real important. So if you're going to be in the chemical business, having a chemical background. But, I did, out of working for 30 years, 15 of my years was in research. And the latter 15 was working more on the business side. And I can tell you that it's much easier to work in a lab than it is to manage and lead a bunch of people. People are a lot harder than chemicals. So I think the skills that I really had to figure out on the way was how to lead people. Leading is more about creating a vision and creating a strategy to get there, and then leading everybody to do all the tasks that you have to do to get there. So that's the big piece of what I do.
And so for you to be successful in your current role as a leader, what are some of the particular skills that you need to have and use today?
Really, it's about the leader's job is to figure out where you need to be in 5 years, what your company needs to look like in the future. So you're really trying to predict the future all the time. And then you set what that looks like. That's what I call the vision. So I look at what my company, where it should be, where's the opportunity 5 years from now. And then we create a strategy, kind of like a roadmap to get to that 5-year picture. And then we just keep managing to that picture. And it's all about leading people down that road to the vision of where you want to be.
So there's a heavy emphasis on planning as part of that, and organization would probably be a critical skill as well, right?
That's correct. Planning, the biggest piece of why people don't reach their vision is they don't execute well. Execution is 90% of strategy, they always say, getting to your vision. And so, yeah, you have to be very organized, planning, project management in order to execute well.
Well, that's something that's certainly relevant to all students in school, right? As they get long-term projects and organizing that, and especially today where everybody's working independently now, remotely, whether you're 12 or 16 or 20 or in the workplace. And
yeah,
so
sure.
It's great to hear you say that, because that's something we can all be practicing today. What would you say is the most exciting part of your job, or has been most exciting part of your job, either as a chemist or as an executive, or both?
Well, I think I love to build things. So whether it's building businesses or innovating, building new products. So in my experience in life, I've had the opportunity to invent a couple new products. I'll give you an example. They can make an apple live in storage for 6 months. I was involved in that invention. That was a while ago. And I've also been able to build businesses all over the world. I've traveled on every continent except Antarctica. And so that 900 million packets is really being shipped all over the world. And we have 4 plants all that make those. So yeah, I love to build things. I think I would be bored if I was just, managing one thing that was going steady.
So you've just talked about a couple things. I want to pull out each of those. Let's talk about that apple real quick.
Sure.
So first of all, if an apple is in the refrigerator but has not been, and we'll learn more about this process from you in 1 second, but has not gone through that process, how long? So if I just go out and pick an apple this fall in Illinois, where we have lots of apple trees, and put it in my refrigerator, how long would I expect that apple to be edible?
Well, yeah, I think so. There's something called the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll answer your question, but I think it's not quite as simple as
Great.
How you're framing it. Probably that apple would last a week in the refrigerator. But apples, when you go to the grocery store, don't start that way. Apples start from an orchard in perhaps China, perhaps Washington. They're picked off the tree. They're put into a storage facility, possibly up to 6 months. They're taken out. This is why you can have apples all year long, because they are seasonal. And then they're shipped to the supermarkets. Where our product is used is in that process where they're stored. So while the apple that you pick may last 7 days off the tree in your yard, the apple that was picked in Washington State, put in storage for 6 months, shipped to the supermarket, you bought it, put it in your refrigerator, that one will also last 7 days. So that's the trick.
So how do you make that happen? That's crazy. You just got an extra 6 months of life out of that apple.
Right.
It's so interesting. This makes me excited to learn more about chemistry, for example.
And it is all chemistry. So the aging, we know what the aging hormone in plants are. It's a gas called ethylene, which is a very small gas molecule. And that gas actually ages plants. So you've heard the adage, one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's actually true. It's because that bad apple is emitting ethylene gas, which is prematurely aging the rest of the apples. So based on all that chemistry, what we do is we devised a molecule that looked like an ethylene molecule, but wasn't. So it went into the plant. It went to where the ethylene would normally bind and cause aging, but it wasn't ethylene, so it didn't age the plant. So we blocked the aging process. Everyone always asks me if humans could use that, but unfortunately, it's not the same process. Or I'd be very, very rich.
So when you say it goes into the plant, does it go into the apple itself, or it goes into the apple tree?
No, it goes into the apple itself. So
and how do you do that? I'm picturing someone with like a little needle with a little syringe going up to each apple and putting it in. That obviously doesn't scale. So like, how does it get into each apple?
So you know, all apples respire, right? So what they do is they're letting out carbon dioxide out of the plant, and that's a process. So there's pits all over plants, and that's what allows the gas to go out. It also allows gas to go in. So those same small holes, the ethylene goes into the plant, goes into the cells, and it'll bind all the sites that have the aging process in it.
So when you worked on this, I mean, did you figure this out by yourself, or was it a team of people? What did that look like?
It was so it was an interesting process. The actual molecule itself was invented by a biochemist at North Carolina State. Very interesting guy, your stereotypical mad scientist. When I walked into his lab, I was in my 20s at the time, so a little long ago. And he was going to teach me how to make the molecule. And his lab was full of bananas. That's what he does research on. Consequently, it was full of banana flies. So as you're with your chemistry set making all these gases, you have these banana flies all over the place. It was kind of a weird place. But he taught me how to make that molecule. And what actually I was involved in inventing was how to put that gas into a powder form. When you put it in water, it just emits the gas again, because that gas by itself is very unstable. And it wasn't very commercially viable, but we figured out how to make it commercially viable. That was kind of my part.
And about how long did that process take to work through?
Well, he spent his whole life on molecules that inhibited this aging process, and he was probably in his 60s when I met him. Mm-hmm. It took me 5 years to figure out how to make the gas into a powder. So that's probably my major research project.
So again, when we think about, we've got this set in Illinois of these cross-sector essential skills that we want all kids to learn, no matter what they're going to learn. I would say, and this is a great example of where perseverance would be really.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, I mean, it's really the Thomas Edison approach. Is you keep trying things, and you kind of ignore everybody because everyone's telling you you're wasting your time. It can't be done. Blah, blah, blah. But the good news is I was young and stupid and didn't know. And so I would try things no one else would, and it worked. So
cool.
Follow your heart. Don't always listen to all the people that tell you it can't be done.
That's awesome. That is a theme that came up in our last episode as well. And that was on artificial intelligence. So some real breakthroughs there. The other theme connection between this episode and the last one is the being all over the world piece. Mm-hmm. And so your team that you have now, does everybody you work with like physically work with you? Are you all in the same office, or do you have a team spread throughout the world? How does that work?
So we have, so the FloraLife part has 4 factories, and they are where, so flowers, if you walk into a Kroger or a Safeway, I don't know what stores, where in
Illinois, we might have a Jewel, we might have a Jewel, a Mariano's. We do have other stores throughout the state, but yeah, go ahead.
So when you walk into a Jewel, you see a bouquet of roses as an example. Those roses were grown in Bogota, likely, Colombia, in South America. They're grown, they're harvested, put into those bouquets in Colombia. The packets put in right there on the farm, so we have a factory there. It's shipped up in a day. And up to Chicago. Then another day it hits the store. So 2 days before you see those were actually harvested in Bogota, Colombia, by very big rose farms. So yeah, the flower business is a huge supply chain. So we sit on where all the pieces are, where they're grown. And it's similar. Africa supplies Europe. So we have manufacturing in Africa and Europe, and then Bogota, US.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So the last thing, or the last section of things I'm going to ask, what would you say is the thing you love most about your job?
I love doing, it's always new. I do so many different things that I get to do new things all the time. And I love to build things and then work hard at them, see them build up, whether it's innovating some new product or building some new company. You know, it may take 5 years, and then stepping back and looking and say, wow, that 5 years was so worth it. So building new things, I just love to do.
And then how do you feel like your company has a positive impact, or your work specifically has a positive impact on the world?
Well, it's flowers. I mean, you look at the gardens of the world, what's the nurseries, the florists, the flowers, and the supermarkets. They just make the world more beautiful, and we make sure that they live longer and they don't go in the garbage and all those kind of things.
And then my last question, what advice would you have, and you may have already given it, but really in short, when you think about a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old who's kind of thinking about what they might want to do in their professional career in the workplace, what advice would you give them?
I think you really have to work hard, follow what you like. What you do in your 20s is going to kind of frame what your 30s and 40s might even be like. So if you work really hard and study the things that you want in your 20s, your 30s and 40s are going to be so much better, so much more interesting. Do all the school you can when you're young, because you won't have time when you're older. And well, you're always in school, but I don't know if I could go to graduate school twice again now. But you know, work hard. I mean, to really be successful, you have to really follow your passion and work really hard at it. It's not easy. Whoever tells you it's easy, it's not, but it's worth it.
Awesome. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your time today. We really
Sure.
appreciate you sharing this with students.
All right. Thanks, Jason.